Good afternoon and welcome to the Society of Genealogists, to an event focused on researching in the northeast of England, most specifically County Durham, Northumberland and the more recent designation of Tyne Wear. Our first speaker is Elsa Churchill, who is the genealogist here at the Society of Genealogists in London. Over to you, Elsa.
Well, thank you all for coming to this event. As Grant said, my name's Elsa. I'm the genealogist at the Society of Genealogists, and it's my pleasure to introduce this session. I'm the first of our collaborative sessions, working in conjunction with Northumberland and Durham Family History Society. I'm proud to present a panel of experts in researching in the North East, learning about our family history resources for the counties of Durham, Northumberland and Tyne Wear, as Grant said. We have presentations from Family History Society, the Archives of Durham, Northumberland, Tyne Wear, the Victoria County History, Historic Towns Trust, etc. But because I get to kick off, I'm the first to actually focus on the Society of Genealogists, what it does and what we have for this area. I think I've got about 15 minutes to cover everything about the Society and obviously we'll answer questions at the end. I'm going to have to speak quite quickly to pack it all in. I'll be talking about the Society of Genealogists Library and Archives, talking a little bit about our catalogues, and the Society as our research hub at Wharf Road, as we describe ourselves, is maintained of our library of books, electronic and micromedia, both on and off the shelves at Wharf Road, access through our own library catalogues, and because we're an affiliate partner with Family Search, you can use Family Search catalogue to identify things you can view at the library as well. We have an archive of manuscript documents, research papers, notes, special collections and pedigrees, all of which are off-site, but there are PDF lists on the library pages of our website listing what we have in the manuscript collections. We have a significant amount of the Society's holdings online in our SOG Explore, which have our digital collections, digitised records, indexes, database and copies of our books, all of which are described on our website sog.org.uk. The Society seeks to create a working genealogical research hub, concentrating on sources, how to do it, with textbooks, guides and periodicals, information about what your ancestors did in their lives. So we collect occupational records, education, apprenticeship, military service, tax records, criminals, etc. What research has been done before, particularly by identifying compiled family histories and pedigrees and research notes and papers, but primarily, and I think from this focus, resources for where your ancestors lived and came from. And that means for material for the UK and indeed overseas, resources particularly for indexes, finding aids, copies and transcripts of vital records of birth, marriage and death, church baptisms, marriages and burials, census directories and lots of other local records. We have best idea to view the library pages of our website, which give you information how you can find us, accessing the library catalogues, and some of our archive finding aid and descriptions of our online resources. It's also through here where you can book a session if you need to come into the library, because not everything that we hold is on the open shelves. At the shelves at SOG, you'll find material relating to England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland, particularly general and local items, digitised copies of registers and monumental inscriptions available in digital form at Wharf Road, quick reference, etc. But there's a lot of material that we'll find listed in the catalogues which are not actually in the building, which would need to be ordered in, such as microfilms, material for professions, trades and occupations, religions, etc. But we are gradually digitising a significant amount of the library, so you will find a lot of our directories, poll books online through SOG Explore, and we have a partnership to currently digitising our bound and compiled family histories. So focusing on the county sources, for a particular county, you'd expect us to have what we call general items, which will cover the whole of a county, county histories, pedigrees and genealogies, such as the hearth tax for the whole county, will indexes and finding aids and actually copies of the records relating to probate material. What we call local material relating to specific places might be parish histories, what you might call the parish chest records, such as rate books, parish overseers' accounts, for example, local borough freeman records, or even, material relating to local quarter sessions. Registers will include copies, transcripts, indexes, and finding aids, both for Church of England christening and marriages and burial registers, but significant holdings for nonconformists, Roman Catholics, Quakers, and other denominations. We have probably one of the largest collections of monumental inscriptions, transcribing what's on the tombstones in churchyards and cemeteries, as well, of course, name-rich resources such as directories, poll books, and of course we have all the local Record Society, County Record Society, Family and Local History Society publications that might be relevant, all of which are listed in the library catalogue, which you can access through the search our collections page on the website, or directly through to the library catalogue. And there is guidance on using the catalogue on the library. While you can do more sophisticated, advanced and simple keyword searches of the catalogue, it defaults to what we call the browse by subjects, which answers about 9 questions out of 10. As I've given you some sort of general subject headings that you might expect to find for a whole county here, for example, for Durham, which will give you some subjects that you can browse through just to see what general items might cover the whole of the county. I'm going to use, if I may, a recent inquiry that we had asking what records the Society held relating to a family called Bowick in Northumberland, especially in Tynemouth. I'm indebted to Tash, who I hope is joining us today, for giving me an idea of how to structure this presentation. For example, I was able to send her a list of items from the catalogue relating to Tynemouth that might be of interest to her. And she could then book a visit to view these items at the Society, or we may be able to help her through our search copy service, details of which you can find on the library pages of the website. So within the catalogue are listed 28 items relating to Tynemouth, which include maps, local histories and guides, copies and index of records for the ancient and later ecclesiastical parishes of the Church of England, as well as nonconformist Catholics, etc. Significant number of MIs, census indexes and town directories. The Tynemouth is covered by Boyd's Marriage Index. Actually, there are 732 items listed on the library catalogue for Northumberland registers and 272 items relating to MIs for that county. There are 905 hits in the catalogue for Durham registers and 227 for MIs. There were 96 ancient parishes in the county of Northumberland, and marriages taking place at various periods are recorded in Boyd's Marriage Index for 81 of those parishes, amounting to some 85% of the county. And as I said, that includes Tynemouth, and they're all in what's called the main series. And you can find this online through SOG Explore. There were 91 ancient parishes in the county of Durham. Marriages taking place at various times are recorded for 71 of them. In Boyd's Marriage Index, that amounts to about 75% of the county, the original registers being indexed in what we call the main series, and banns in the first and second miscellaneous series. Nearly all the work on this county within Boyd's Marriage Index was done by his friend Herbert Maxwell Wood, MA, FSA, founder member and fellow of the Society. He was also honorary secretary of the Durham and Northumberland Parish Register Society and also the SOG Parish Register Society for those counties before he died in 1929. Wood lodged copies of his Marriage Index work in various libraries and archives in Durham and Northumberland in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration first expressed in a letter from 1908, where Charles Burnot, the main driver behind the formation of the Society, hopes that local friendships and already established connections would lead to the Society obtaining many members from his district, and that is equally his appetite today. And the Societies continue to work with local indexers and transcribers of records and obtaining publications from local societies, etc. So I could tell our inquiry that the genealogical guide by J.B. Whitmore suggested there's information on the name Bewick in volume 13, page 104 of the New History of Northumberland, issued under the direction of the Northumberland County Committee between 1893 and 1940. And there's also a sheet pedigree compiled by the Herald H.S. Tucker. We actually have a copy of that in the Society's collection, and it's listed in the inventory of our pedigree rolls, which you can find amongst the online archive finding aid links from the library pages of the website, which tells us that we have a copy of that pedigree. It will be shortly uploaded online, but in the meantime, we can provide a copy if it's appropriate. It's part of our project to digitise and index approximately 20,000 sheets of rolled pedigrees, as we describe them, within the Society's collection. And of course, we have the set of the new history of Northumberland at the Society of Genealogists on the open shelves on our shelf mark, NU for Northumberland, G for General, number 36. It's part of the Northumberland General, covering the whole of the county for and history for that area. And it's very typical of county histories, including compiled pedigrees of local prominent and landowning families. And we also have on the Northumberland General shelves at Wharf Road the volumes of the Northumberland Families, compiled by W. Percy Headley, a publication of the Society of Antiquaries of Newcastle upon Tyne, 289 pages compiling pedigrees, etc. And again, we have both volumes of that series in the library. Other items you might find in the library with things relating to the county might be Northumberland General Papists. So here we have the transcript of the Papist returns for 1767 for the Archdeaconry of Northumberland, first compiled in 1987, and another copy or work done on that, Roman Catholics in the Diocese of Durham, covering those parts of Northumberland and County Durham in the Diocese of Durham, extracted by the Cleveland Family History Society. Again, just typical of the transcript of records and indexes and name-rich resources that we collect. Local items relating to a particular place might include, for example, a name index compiled by Maura Furness and Fred Furness to records held at Newcastle in relating to the Newcastle Quarter Session records. And again, nice name indexes for those at the SOG. There are references to the name Berwick among several online digital collections from the library, including digital copies of Durham and Northumberland poll books, Trinity House petitions, Great Eastern Railway investors' probate registers, even members' birth briefs, and also entries in Boys' Marriage Index, all of which can be viewed online by SOG members. Books digitised, and in this case indexed, such as poll books, can be found by browsing through SOG Explore, using the freshly launched today A to Z listings, and then browsing through the pages or searching a particular dataset. So I can find Buicks in the indexed Northumberland poll books datasets for 1710, 1715, 1721 and 1734 online from SOG Explore. Unindexed books listed in the SOG Library Catalogue, which have been scanned and digitised onto SOG Data Online, can, as from today, be found using the A to Z listing on SOG Explore, and you can therefore browse through the pages to read at home. So you can see the catalogue tells us we have a copy of Ward's Directory of Northumberland from 1890, and there are a few digital directories for Durham listed in the catalogue too, and you can browse through those pages online on SOG Explore. And just to finish up, we have about 150 boxes in what we call the topographical collection of miscellaneous stuff relating to places. By topographical, this is pertaining to or dealing with a place rather than names from topography, which the OED defines as the science of describing a particular place, city, town, manor, parish or tract of land. So these are essentially miscellaneous, often original documents that have come to us from deposits or even solicitors clearing deed boxes for etc. Maybe no other record office wanted them, but they're absolutely a lucky dip of what we might have for a place of your interest. And our topographical listings can be found in the paper lists available through our online archive finding aids. This is all in anticipation of having a much better archive catalogue, but in the meantime you can see the paper lists, and if, for example, I can see what's in some of what we call the topographical boxes for Northumberland. For Hexham, there's a copy of some original Court Baron minutes from the manor of Alnwick Grange, and deeds, and lots of listings of deeds. That's quite something that identifying what deeds there might be for particular families who own property, for example. So that's the wallet of documents from the Northumberland topographical box. and just finishing up with perhaps a tenant's copy of the extract of what was going on in the manorial court baron of Alnwick Grange, or the agreement about a party wall for a deed of covenant between Thomas Ridley and Charles Shafto, dated 1783, but taking information much further because of references to early agreements cited in the bottom left-hand corner of the document. We're not a record office formally, but we're often a record office of last resort for wonderful documents that end up. Of course, I should mention that we are a partner with Family Search, so information that Family Search has digitised for particular places in the North East should be available to view via, and these are all listed through the Family Search catalogue that you can identify what's available at the SOG. And I should mention that on the 26th of February, you're welcome to take a tour of the Society with our librarian, Christine, who will explain what sources we have for researching family history in the northeast of England. She'll be on hand to answer questions. And also there's an opportunity to network with others researching families in the same area, where you can spend an afternoon focusing on your northeastern roots. So thank you for letting me give you an overview of the Society. I'm really looking forward to seeing how our collections relate to those of the local institutions. But I think you'll find that Society is a great place to start researching your ancestors that come from the Northeast. So I'll stop sharing there.
Very much. Thank you very much for the warm welcome.
Now we have
all right.
Carolyn Ball, who's the County Archivist at the Story Durham, the newly opened local history centre in Durham. Over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Grant, for that warm welcome, and hello everybody. It's nice to see you on this rather overcast afternoon here in Durham. So I feel sort of completely inadequate following on from Elsa's very comprehensive summary of the types of records that you can find about the history of the North East, the Society of Genealogists. What I'm going to do is, just as a very quick crib from all of her hard work, is to say the majority of the things that Elsa talks about are available regionally, and particularly here at the Story at Durham as well. So thank you for all your hard work on that one, Elsa. It saves me having to do some of it. What I'm going to do in my talk is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Story Durham. It is brand new, so it might be something that a place you're not familiar with, and the types of family history research that you can do here. So as Fran said, it's a brand new centre. The Story Durham opened in June 2024. And if you have done North East research, you will know that Durham County Record Office was closed for quite a significant period of time, both because of COVID and for the preparations of moving to this new site. So the Story Durham is the new home of Durham County Record Office. It started out as a project over 10 years ago to find us a new home. And this is the result. So you can see in front of you this rather grand building. We are occupying, for any of you who know Durham City, what was previously a golf course. We have a Grade 2 listed building that dates back to the beginning of the 19th century. And then we have the modern extension, which looks very small on there, but is actually several times the size of the actual old building. And that's where we have our research facilities, our permanent exhibition, and the storage areas for our collections as well. So what started out as an ambition to find a new home for the Record Office has actually delivered far more than that. So if you visit us at the Story today, you will find that we have brought 5 historic collections together for the very first time. And these collections are the County Durham Archives, so those records that were previously at Durham County Record Office, the records of the Historic Environment Record, which is the digital archaeology record for the county. The reference library that was previously in local studies in Clayport Library in Durham City. The Durham Light Infantry collection that was previously in the museum at Akeley Heads in Durham, and more recently at Seven Hills in Spennymoor. And I'm checking that's only 4. The 5th one is the civil registration records for County Durham from 1837. And we are all on the same site now. And as I will sort of show you later, you access us all in very similar ways. So moving on, and hopefully if my screen works correctly. Yeah. So one of the things, I don't know how many of you have ever visited the Record Office in County Hall in Durham, but we've tried to deliver something very different here at the Story, and allowing for the fact that people like to access collections and find out information in different ways. So one of the things that greets you when you first visit the Story is a state-of-the-art exhibition area, which introduces you to the 5 collections that we host here, alongside a thematic approach to the history of the county. It's a decent sized space, but if we wanted to tell the entire history of the county, we'd need a much, much bigger one. Within that, what we're trying to do is introduce people to the types of information that you might find if you wanted to do a little bit more research. So on the left is just a general overview of what the exhibition space looks like. And then on the right, you've got one of our interactives that's in the exhibition called Changing Landscapes. And it allows you to explore different parts of the county through time. So I think my colleague there is looking at Concert, and all you can do is you can select the images and it'll bring you up. It's a really nice, gentle way to introduce you to our collections. And then hopefully encourage you want to find out more. I should say at this stage that County Durham is, when I talk about County Durham, I'm referring to the historic county of Durham. So effectively, the records that you might uncover here go up to the River Tyne and down to the River Tees, and very occasionally dip over into North Yorkshire as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. So that's on the ground floor when you come in. And then when you go upstairs, it's really our research area. We have 2 areas for research. In fact, we have 3 areas for research on this floor. To your left, this area here is our digital suite, where we have 16 computer terminals where people can access information. We also have an interactive map table, which covers ordnance survey maps for the entire county, again, historic county. It's where you can come and get historic certificates from the registrars. And we also have the search room. And you might notice up here that it is called the collections room. And this is because it's not just about accessing archives here. You can access objects as well. So if you had an ancestor who served in the Durham Light Infantry, for example, you could potentially request medals or other things that are in the collection as well. The access for archives in the collections room is mostly on demand. For medals, it's 72 hours notice, and for other objects, we ask for 10 days notice. But that's why it's collections room and not search room. One of the things that you won't find here at the Story is microfilm. We made a conscious decision when we were planning for the move not to bring microfilm with us. Everything that was previously on microfilm is now available digitally. And this includes the following main family history resources. So cemetery and crematorium registers. I can't read it on my little screen. I'm going to have to go and look at my big one. The Church of England parish registers, some Durham Light Infantry enlistment discharge books, Durham Light Infantry war diaries, electoral registers, newspapers, nonconformist church registers. This has been a mammoth undertaking. Something like 2,500 microfilms have been digitised, and we are just about to launch in its entirety. It's taken us a little while to do that. For example, at the moment, we have nearly 7,500 Church of England registers digitised. We have about 1,000 electoral registers. We've done a rough estimate. We think we've got 400,000 different editions of newspapers currently digitised, covering 20 different titles relating to the county. When we launch the full site, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, as I say, we'll be supplementing that with about 1,000 nonconformist registers and the other material as well. So that's what it looks like. I'll give you some examples in a moment. Alongside that, we've also been creating a database of all of those indexes for which we have the copyright. So if it's a register that's been indexed, then we have put it into a database so it's searchable in one place, which will then cross-reference to the registers. As you can see at the top, we've started to expand the index as well. So we have some Durham Light Infantry indexes in there now. The ambition longer term is to add some of the indexes, perhaps with the police, some of the hospital information that we have as well. Very quickly, an example of the quality of information that you will find on the screens. So I was quite dubious. I've only been in post as county archivist for the last just over 2.5 years. No, not quite 2.5 years. And when I was told we were converting microfilm, I was quite nervous. And for all of you who've used Ancestry and Find My Past and seen some of the microfilm conversion, you'll know why. But I hope when you're looking at what you can see on screen that you'll agree that the quality that we've been able to achieve with the digitization is worth doing. My fears have been completely allayed. The feedback we're getting is brilliant. That is the quality that you're going to get when you access what was previously microfilm, but on the computers now. And it's not just the quality you get with registers. If I can give you this one, this is what you're getting with newspapers. You can really scroll in on the detail. So there's an overview on the right-hand side. And there's one, well, I did it lunchtime. I thought, what can I show you to sort of show? And I found my mum and dad's photograph in the Concert Chronicle from 1965. But I'm sure you would agree that the quality there is nothing that you would have previously got if you'd been looking at it in microfilm in the old microfilm area that we had at County Hall. So it's a whistle stop tour, I'm sure you'll agree, but what I wanted to give you was a flavour of what is available. And if I just conclude by saying that the collections room is pre-bookable, it's open Monday to Friday, 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock. But for this content, the digital content that you might want to look at, this is available when the site's open. And the site is open 7 days a week. Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. until 7 o'clock on a Thursday. And if you come in then, you can access this material. So you're not constrained any longer by when the collections room is open. There's always a member of staff available to help you. We have got some fabulous volunteers and who'll get you started as well. In conclusion, the other thing that I would say about this is we want to break down barriers. We know that visiting record officers and archives can be a daunting task for many people. And although the rules we have in place are very important to make sure the records that we have survive for another 1,000 years, if it's on microfilm or digital, we don't need those in the same way. So you don't have to pre-book to go into the digital area. You don't have to put your bags in a locker. You don't have to use a pencil. And heaven forbid, if you'd like to have a cup of coffee while you're doing your research, then you're very welcome to do that as well. So we're trying to make this as an engaging and as welcoming a space as we possibly can. And if at the end of the day, you need to go and relax and have a think about all of the research that you've uncovered, then we've got a fabulous cafe downstairs that does the best cake in County Durham. So that's what I'm going to do. As an archivist, I'm going to finish on cake. And thank you all very much for listening.
Okay, next we have Joe Marsh, who's the Senior Archivist at Northumberland Archives and has worked in archives across the country for the past 20 years. Over to you, Joe.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Grant, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'd also like to thank Elsa for her fantastic introduction. I feel that you've covered so much about Northumberland already that it's quite a difficult act to follow. Also really nice to see Carolyn. I used to work at Durham County Record Office before it moved to the Story, so it's very close to my heart. As Grant said, I'm Senior Archivist at Northumberland Archives. I've been in post since January 2020. So in archival terms, not all that long at Northumberland Archives. And I feel like I've only really started kind of scratching the surface of this amazing county and the collections that we hold for it. You may know that we have two offices at Northumberland Archives. We have one office at Woodhorn, is just outside of Ashington. Woodhorn was a coal mine and is now a coal mining museum, and we're on the site of that museum. We also have an office up in Berwick, and the Berwick Record Office is currently housed in the library at Berwick upon Tweed. We're hoping in the next couple of years we should be moving from that site into the Berwick Barracks as part of their the big regeneration that's going on up there. The Berwick office serves the northernmost part of the county, so from kind of just above Alnwick and across the county to Northumberland National Park, including Sea Houses, Bamborough, the Farne Islands and Holy Island. So if you're coming to do research with us, it's always worth checking to see whether the records that you want to come and have a look at are at the Woodhorn office or whether they're at Berwick upon Tweed. You can tell that from our online catalogue. It will record where the documents are, but you can always give us a ring or drop us an email if you're not sure about that. We just hate it when people turn up at Woodhorn and we have to tell them, actually, you've got another hour's drive up the A1 to look at the records that you're interested in. So what I thought I would do today is to talk a little bit about some of the records that I thought would be interesting in terms of family history, maybe some things that you maybe wouldn't necessarily kind of come across in all of record offices across the country. And so I thought I'd start with some mining records, because of course mining was the dominant industry in Northumberland, just as it was in most of the northeast, for a really long time, at least from the sort of 18th to into the 20th centuries. As Woodhorn is an accredited place of deposit, we do have British Coal Board records because they are public records. And so we do have records relating to collieries and the coal mining industry. These records in particular that I wanted to show you today are from the Northumberland Coal Owners Mutual Protection Association. And the association was a group of coal mine owners within the county who came together to insure themselves against compensation claims from their workers. And I think it's quite interesting to note that these records start from 1898, which is directly after the Workmen's Compensation Act of 1897, when it became a lot easier for employees to claim compensation from their employers. The association minute books contain entries like the one that you can see here. They contain information about the individual who is involved in an accident. So we've got Percy Dochin here, who was 14 and he was a screen boy at Netherton Colliery. So we've got some kind of interesting information about the individual concerned, but we also tend to have a bit of information about the family of the man or boy who had been injured. Now, this is because if the injured party had dependents, that had an effect on how much compensation they were entitled to. So you get a really good little snapshot here of the family I have to say there are quite a lot of fathers which I've come across in this who were 40 years old. So I think you might have to take some of the dates as kind of some of the ages as approximate. Really useful source, especially if you're looking through censuses and you've got a kind of blank patch, as you do, between censuses. As you can see here, this is dated 1906. So if you'd found the family in 1901 and 1911, you can fill in a little bit more of their movements and their history from this sort of source. I think it's quite useful to be able to then take this information from the compensation records and cross-check them, as I've suggested here, in inquest reports, and we do also hold coroner's records at Northumberland Archives. I couldn't actually find an inquest report for this instance. I could find a report for it in one of the local newspapers, and that gave me a lot more information about it, so worth checking out. The next series of records, which I thought I would talk about today, are the guild records for the town of Berwick upon Tweed. So the records of the freemen or the guild are one of the kind of core collections up at Berwick, and they paint a really detailed picture of the town from at least the 16th century. So as you probably come across freeman records, they're kind of similar to the freeman records that you might find in other towns. There were 3 ways in Berwick to become a freeman. The first one was by patrimony. So the eldest son of a freeman was entitled to become a freeman of the town of Berwick. And from 1783, this was actually widened so that all the sons of freemen could then become freemen. By apprenticeship, the apprentice had to be apprenticed for at least 7 years to a freeman, and apprentices had to be at least 16 years old. Before 1783, it seems that this was kind of used as a bit of a workaround to give younger sons the freedom. And so it's maybe questionable as to how rigorous some of these apprenticeships were. The third pathway that could give you the freedom of Berwick was by ticket. And this is the term used in Berwick to refer to the ceremonial freedom of the town. So this is people who are have maybe done something significant or noteworthy, or helping the town in some way. And this and the ticket was not to be passed down, so it didn't give men the right to hand the freedom to their sons. So what records do we have about the freemen? Well, one of the most useful is probably the guild books. The main series of guild books runs from 1513 to pretty much the present day. I have to say there are some draft guild books which predate this slightly. I think they go to 1509, and so it is possible to maybe even take that back a little bit further. So in the guild books, you will find every November, after the election of the mayor of the town of Berwick, the guild books listed all of the freemen of the town, and they did this in order of precedence. So at the top here, you can see the bailiffs, and then you've got the aldermen, alderman for a year, and then all of the other freemen. The most recent freeman coming at the end of the list. So giving you a really good snapshot of the men who were in the town at that point. The Guild books also record admissions to the freedom and approval of apprenticeships. So really useful source there. There are a couple of other series within the Berwick town collection that relate to the freemen. I've made a note of them here. The asterisk here is a wild card. So if you're going to search on our online catalogue, this is the reference for these records, but there are a number of them. So the star there will mean that you can search for everything within that series. So there are admissions and claims and proofs. Quite often this is letters and copies of parish registers to prove who was and that his father was a freeman, and of course those apprenticeship records as well. There are two different series here because the BA/F/2 series is actually for the post 1835 records. Of course, 1835 marking the Municipal Corporations Act, when the government of towns changed significantly, and the freemen didn't have that sort of political power that they had previously. So the next documents that I wanted to just highlight is something that I've actually done some work on. We had some volunteers during lockdown who did a project for us where we did some remote volunteering. We scanned these records and they did some indexing of them for us. They're referred to as the men and carts records, and they're found in the Northumberland quarter sessions records. And the men and carts records are basically a sort of parish survey that dates from 1798. Of course, in 1798, England was under the threat of invasion from Napoleon. So the quarter sessions told each parish constable within the county to make a list of men aged 15 to 60, and it does say they have to be able-bodied men, so obviously thinking about having to defend the county, but also the men and the carts and horses available within the county as well. And it does say in the printed form here that this is for the removal of dead stock. So probably thinking there that if it did come to a battle with Napoleon, that the carts and horses were needed to take bodies away from the battlefield. Now, the men and carts records are on this pre-printed form, and I have to say it's not a very clear form, having dealt with quite a lot of them. And it seems that the parish constables got a little bit confused about how to fill them in sometimes. So the information that you do get can be a bit variable, and sometimes they do seem to repeat the information that they've entered. However, it does provide a snapshot of all the men aged between 15 and 60 in a parish in this year. And some women do crop up in the men and carts lists as owners of carts and horses. If you're lucky, then the parish constable sometimes included extra information on the lists that they compiled. This is one of the men and carts lists from the parish of Shotton and Plessy. And as you can see, we've got here James Weddell, and it's been recorded what his trade or occupation was. Cordwainer here, and as you can see, we've got a pitman and quite a few pitmen, because Plessy was the site of a coal mine. And then we've got the Bootymans here, fantastic surname, who were wagon way wrights. Because there was an early wagon way between Plessy and Blythe, where coal was then put onto ships at the port of Blythe to be then sailed around England to London. So that gives you just a little flavour of some of the records at Northumberland Archives. Please do have a look at our website. As you can see here, we're at northumberlandarchives.com. We do have a list of leaflets which have information about the parish collections that we hold, how to research a mining ancestor, and what newspapers we hold, all sorts of really useful information. If you can't find what you're looking for on the website, of course, please do get in touch with us and we'll do our best to help you.
Okay, now we'll go to Joyce Jackman, who is the chairman of the Northumberland and Durham Family History Society. Over to you, Joyce.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry about the failure of my PowerPoint, but never mind. Northumberland and Durham Family History Society have been established for 50 years this year. The first meeting was at the Central Library in Newcastle on an October evening in 1975, and from that our society was formed. The society was duly registered as a charity and, of course, then became a member of the Family History Federation. Accumulated by these early members was an impressive collection of transcripts, and there was a growing number of publications for local history as well as and diverse subjects. It's amazing what we find in our library. And then we were sort of at a time where there was too many records to be left in people's garages, offices and studies. There was also conferences held, and the most notable one was the one at Otterburn Hall. We have moved twice. Once we were at 3 times. We had a lease at Bolbeck Hall in 1996, and then we've moved twice since then. And the society is now on the 3rd floor at New England House, Ridley Place in Newcastle. And this is easily accessed by the nearby public transport hubs. The metro is very nearby. And the centre is staffed by a number of knowledgeable volunteers who give of their time freely week in and week out. Our quarterly journal is compiled by a very able editor, and contributions to our journal are always gratefully received by the editor. And I think that's a thing when you have a journal, it's getting contributions to it. The membership of our society stands at 1,877, and this includes members from around the world. The cost of being a member of the society is £15 per annum and includes 4 copies of our journal a year. But communications with our members have always been important, and like all organisations, have embraced the electronic means of communicating. Our quarterly journal is now sent through an electronic form, but not to be forgotten are the members who do not want to have an electronic form in the journal, and they are sent the ordinary journal through the post. And to keep members up to date, there is also a newsletter which is sent between the times of the publications of the journals. Changes have been made to the way we research. We all know this, and members are able to access the membership section of our website. This means that amazing amounts of data are available to our members to assist them with their researches. They're saying there's 3 million pieces of data there. The Society runs an active Facebook page. This enables members to post any research problems, and this generates support, and other members assist people who are looking for, usually they're brick wall researchers that they want doing. Once a month, there is a Zoom Roots chat discussion, and speakers give presentations on specific topics with discussions afterwards. Research requests can also be sent via email to our research centre. The Society has 9 branches around the 2 counties who meet once a month, and speakers are engaged with discussions afterwards. All are welcome to the meetings, and all this is part of keeping a vibrant interest in family history. And I've got to say, if you'd seen the presentation, you'd see a beautiful photograph of an outing of one of the groups to a reservoir. Turning to our Library and Research Centre at New England House, it is a rich repository of accumulated transcripts and publications. A focus is now being made upon a small proportion of the latter. There's a huge collection of monumental inscriptions covering Northumberland and Durham, together with an ongoing project for photographing images of MIs, and these images can be purchased from our sales office. Going on, and I think these have been mentioned before, Newcastle Quarter Sessions transcripts 1744 to 1777 are available. Transportation records to 1855, and a combined index of Methodist baptisms for Newcastle 1787 to 1977. We also have hard copies to a selection of indexes for cemeteries and crematoria. There are a good selection of transcripts of births, marriages and deaths on our library shelves. Should say burials. There is access to our databases via the public PCs in the premises. There are about 6 PCs. And we have subscriptions to Find My Past, Ancestry, The Genealogist. We are also an affiliate member for Family Search. Whilst it is not fashionable to retain microfiches, we do. They include all the 1984 edition of the IGI for the UK and all parish registers for Scotland, mainly because we're so in Northumberland was so in the vicinity of Scotland's borders with England. There are also fishes and parishes which the information is not on hard copy on the shelves. We have a collection of 2,500 family trees, together with 326 family histories. Now this is unique to us, a database of all names recorded in Durham wills. By that I mean, as the Diocese of Durham covered the county of Northumberland at the time. And these are available to view in the membership section of the website. That would be the years that would be covered in the names of the wills would be from 1700 to 1858. So you might, it's very possible that you may find that somebody who had been employed may receive a small gratuity, and that would, their name would be recorded in this index. There is a searchable list of promoters and defendants in causes held in the consistorial court of the Bishop of Durham, and that's also in the membership section. And included in that a transcription of the names and other details of persons mentioned in the cause papers and Proctor's papers are being added to all the time. Sales are an important part of the society, and also for ensuring that researchers are able to receive hard copy data or purchased transcript sent by a PDF file. In addition, our sales catalogue provides not only PRs and census data, but a selection of publications and also 19th century maps, but of course that'll be the Godfrey ones. And our sales officer is kept quite busy with sales enquiries. Our society enjoys a very good amicable communications with Northumberland Archives, Tyne Wear Archives, the Story at Durham, and Newcastle City Library. I'm sorry it's been disappointed that you couldn't access the images I had on my PowerPoint. But in conclusion, thank you for your patience in learning a bit more about Northumberland and Durham Family History Society and our wonderful library and research centre at Ridley Place, Newcastle upon Tyne. Thank you.
Okay, so now we go back to Carolyn Ball, who worked at Tyne Wear Archives for over 20 years before moving to Durham, and she has a really good knowledge of the TWA collections. So over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you. No pressure whatsoever.
Nope.
So for those of you, I just to remind you, I'm Carolyn Ball. I'm currently County Archivist at Durham, but I was manager of Tyne Wear Archives and Discovery Museum for quite a long time, as Grant's just alluded to. It was not supposed to be me giving this talk, so I've stepped in to Lizzie Baker, who unfortunately is not available today. She's currently the archives lead at Tyne Wear. I also need to give thanks to Rachel Gill, who's at Tyne Wear also, who pulled together this presentation for me. So I'm going to use some of my knowledge, but Rachel has selected the things that I am going to talk about today. So I've seen in the chat there's been a few questions about the geography of the Northeast. So I think this is a very relevant place to start. So Tyne Wear Archives, what does it cover? So Tyne Wear Archives, for those of you who haven't been before, is based in the centre of Newcastle in Discovery Museum, which is that big red brick building in the picture. And it's been there since 1974, when Tyne Wear County Council was created. So if we look at this picture, just to give you an idea, so quite a lot of this building is a museum. I realized I picked a really bad picture when I chose this, because essentially the oh, sorry, go back. I thought I had the highlighted thing on, but the search room of the Tyne Wear Archives is right behind the train. So bad choice picture. And the archives are the entire third floor, and that's sort of one wing. There are 3 wings. Tyne Wear Archives is huge. There's over 12 miles of records in discovery, which is not bad going when you consider that Tyne Wear County Council was only in existence between 1974 and 1986. And it covers what is really, you could consider to be the urban areas of what was previously part of Northumberland and what was previously part of County Durham. So Newcastle, Gateshead, North Shields, Tynemouth, Sunderland, all of these places that were either in one of those historic counties before 1974 became part of Tyne Wear in for 1974. And although the County Council has been gone for nearly 40 years, Tyne Wear has continues to thrive, and is a really important resource for family history in the region, not least if you have ancestors who were involved in industry in some way. And I will talk about that a little bit more. Just to give you a bit of a flavour, it would take far too long to explain what goes where and how on earth do you find what you're looking for if it's in one of those places I've mentioned. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then it gives you an idea of how complicated it is. So, for example, if you wanted parish registers, we follow the diocesan boundaries. So whatever the Diocese of Newcastle is, or the Diocese of Durham, that's where you'll find those records. So Tyne Wear does not actually hold any original church records. But for nonconformist registers, churches, we follow the more recent boundaries. So if it's a church in Houghton-le-Spring, for example, what you'll find is that the Church of England records are in Durham. The Methodist, the Roman Catholic, and Baptist will be at Tyne Wear. I apologise, it is complicated, but what I would say is that every archive service in the region, and colleagues like Joyce for the Family History Society, are really good at pointing you in the right direction. So please do not be afraid to get in touch and say, where might I find? And we will point you in the right direction. So Tyne Wear, short-lived, but in Discovery Museum there. Again, it's free to visit. Opening hours currently are 4 days a week, Tuesday to Friday. You do need to pre-book. That is essential. And they also do ask you to pre-book documents as well, but they're very good at advising you on what is required. I did see a note on the website. They are about to temporarily reduce their hours a little bit further. I don't know the exact details of that. There are some staffing issues which they just need to manage for a short period of time. So picking up on the theme, what Rachel chose for me was not the sort of typical collections that you might find in an archive service, but the things that are unique to Tyne Wear, but also unique to the region. And I was fascinated that Joe had actually picked some of the compensation claims that they have in Northumberland, because the first thing that Rachel chose for me was the Northumberland and Durham Miners Permanent Relief Fund, which is a fantastic collection that is held there. It was set up after the Hartley pit disaster in 1862, where a huge number of men and boys lost their lives. And this was about making sure that if the miner was injured, they could receive compensation, but also that if they were killed, that their wives and their dependents would get funding as well. So although it is a miners relief fund, actually what you often find is it's a name rich for the descendants of the miners, which is a fantastic resource that you don't always see. So on here, you're getting the names of their wives, you're getting the names of their children, you're getting the dates when the relief commenced. So although it's about miners, the miners' names are not always mentioned, but there you have Anne-Marie Miller, and her children Alice and Elizabeth, William, James, Robert, Edward, John, Arthur, Charles, and Maria Jane. So it's fantastic. Quite a lot of it is indexed, and I'm going to check my notes to make sure I haven't forgotten anything about this. But that is well worth it. And again, a lot of coal mine records that support this survive at Tyne Wear. It doesn't have it doesn't have National Coal Board records as such, but it does have a lot of the predecessor pre-1948 records in their collections. So well worth it. As an aside, I'm sure most of you, if you've got coal mining ancestors, will know they tend not to be name rich. It can be one of life's great challenges trying to track a coal miner through their career, particularly if they've moved from pit to pit. But there are some surviving records there. That didn't work. Let me just, oh, and have you got a bit of my screen there? Let me move on. So the next one was, there's a fantastic series, and I think this goes to over about 1,000 volumes, of the North East Railway Servants Sickness and Insurance Society. And again, this is something that people could pay into to do, and it doesn't just cover Tyne Wear area, the Tyne Wear area. So it's a pre-national insurance sickness benefit and pension fund, a friendly society, and it covers the whole of the NER regions, by which I mean the North East Railway region. So it goes from Berwick to the West Riding of Yorkshire. And membership was open to all railway employees, even down to labourers. So it's a really fabulous resource. And I'm going to give, so Rachel, who found this, she found her 2 times great granddad in these records. He was a plate layer who lived in Nidderdale in the West Riding. So he's relatively unskilled, but it shows the wide geographical coverage of the collection, and also how it goes through different levels of society as well. It isn't the easiest thing in the world to use. It's worth looking at. It's not currently indexed. So what I would do is, if anybody knows of anybody who fancies indexing, please contact Tyne Wear, and it'll keep them going for a very long time. Okay. I'm sure if you're sort of familiar with the Northeast, you can't really go very far away from shipbuilding or maritime history. And Tyne Wear is actually recognised as holding collections of shipbuilding and maritime history that are not just nationally significant, they're internationally significant as well. So there was a few questions I saw about location of Hawthorne Leslie, Palmer's, Sunderland shipyards, but then there's things like Swan Hunter as well. Those collections are at Tyne Wear, and they are amazing. Again, they're not necessarily name rich, but what they do give you is, if you know that you had an ancestor who built a certain ship, you might be able to find more about it. So it's more about what they did for a career. But alongside that, there's a very extensive collection of crew lists at Tyne Wear, mainly for the North Shields area. And for those of you who know anything about crew lists, quite a lot of them are in Newfoundland. Is it the Memorial University of Newfoundland? There was a period of time where the National Archives decided they didn't want to keep all of them, because there was quite a lot from the Board of Trade records. So they keep every 5th year. I think it's years ending in a 0 and a 5, and they offered up everything else to local record officers, of which there was some take up, but that's why the bulk of them has ended up in Canada. Again, they're a fantastic source of information, but they're not readily indexed, so certainly not the ones we've got. I think at the moment we've got from 18, sorry, I keep saying we, can you see old habits die hard? From 1863, I think there's 1 year that's been name indexed. But they are a wonderful resource, so you find out who was serving aboard different ships. And if you think that can be quite difficult to track down, you think about the census and how, it's only if the ship was in port on the census night that you might find who was on board, providing they hadn't gone off home if they're in the home port. So the crew lists are a fantastic resource for particularly North Shields ships. and I think they go up to about 1910 at Tyne Wear. Again, we've already touched on guild records. Newcastle had lots of guilds, and it's fair to say that the collection that they have there is almost second to none. It covers most of the guilds that were in Newcastle, as well as some in Gateshead. They go back to the 15th century. I think some even earlier, but from 15th century onwards, you're starting to get real name-rich records. You've got lists of who were members, who were apprenticed in each of the guilds, but you also have the Tyne Wear also has the freeman records. So if you were a member of a guild, you were also a freeman. So you've got these two dual collections that you can cross-reference side by side to look through them. This is a I'm going to read what Rachel said. It's an apprenticeship indenture. Thomas Usher, who was a joiner. Son of Robert Usher, who was a joiner of Westgate and Newcastle, who was apprenticed to William Brummel of Newcastle, who was a cordwainer. This was in October 1794. What it's worth just noting about guilds is just because you're in a trade didn't necessarily mean that you were a member of the relevant guild. And obviously, I think Joe touched on with the Berwick examples of how you could become a member of a guild. So it is not straightforward as it might appear. So obviously, father and sons often ended up being in the same guild. But again, a fabulous resource. And one which we haven't touched upon very much today, but again, a very, very popular resource that you will see not just in Tyne Wear, but Northumberland and Durham as well, is Poor Law Records. And this one is for, does it actually say? I'm going to have to work this one out. I'm going to guess with South Shields, but I'm going to have a look in a moment. It is. So this is a admission register for South Shields. Again, huge amount of information provided, and we've got Tyne Wear has records for South Shields, Sunderland, Tynemouth. Although there's a lot of records in the collection for Newcastle, they're not particularly name rich, which is a real shame for that. And a similar situation occurs for Gateshead. So they are just a very rough example of some of the records that you can get in Tyne Wear. It doesn't, as I say, there are 12 miles of records there. This is just a snapshot. But if you have ancestors who are particularly interested in, worked in heavy industry, coal mining, shipbuilding, the associated trades, things like Parsons in Heaton, then there's a strong chance that there may be something that is relevant to your ancestors at the records in Newcastle. Thank you all.
Our next talk is a presentation by Vanessa Harding, who is the chair of the Historic Towns Trust and Emeritus Professor of London History at Birkbeck University of London.
Hello, I'm Vanessa Harding and I'm chair of the Historic Towns Trust. I'd like to explain what we do and how our approach might be of interest and value to the genealogy and family history community of this region. The Historic Towns Trust is a charity run by volunteer trustees like myself, and the motto, mapping our shared history one town at a time, sums up our mission to widen understanding and appreciation of the history and topography of our towns and cities. We do this by producing historical maps and atlases of British towns and cities in partnership with local historians, geographers and archaeologists. Through educational and outreach activities, for example by developing teaching materials for schools and contributing to events such as this, we aim to share how historical maps can help us all to understand and value the urban past and potentially to improve the present. Our publications are used by individuals, in schools and universities, and by community groups. Just as family history contributes to a broader understanding of society in the past, making and using historical maps can help us to see how history shapes environment and how the environment shapes those who inhabit it. Histories of people and histories of place go together and illuminate each other. So far, we've covered more than 30 towns and cities in one publication form or another, and half a dozen are in preparation. Although this is only a tiny fraction of all the historic towns and cities in Britain, it is a start, and given the huge importance of migration and population movement to the history of Britain, wherever you live now, one or more of these may well have played a part in your wider family history. Although our early publications were in atlas form, in recent years we've focused on producing folding maps of individual towns and cities. As you can see from this map, however, we have so far only one publication in this area, comprising maps of Alnwick and Alnmouth on two sides of one sheet. I want to use these two maps to show the richness of historical mapping and suggest how our practice can be extended to wherever else you might be interested in. A key criterion in all our publications is comparability, a common base in Ordnance Survey mapping, a common scale of 1 to 2,500, about 25 inches to the mile, and a similar array of cartographic conventions. And the point is that the development of one place can easily be compared with that of others to promote understanding of their history. Typically, our historical maps show past and present together. This is, after all, the way that we experience towns and cities today. The modern scene includes surviving buildings, ancient street lines, historic place names, and commemorations of past events and people. This is the Hotspur Tower in Alnwick, seen from outside Bondgate. Here, on the outskirts of the town, is the 15th century St. Michael's Church. As I said, our maps are normally based on an Ordnance Survey map of the 19th or early 20th century. In Alnwick, we used one published in 1923. We believe it's important to use a map that predates modern developments and shows the underlying historic layout more clearly, because this helps the viewer and the user to relate what's now or still visible to what was once there. Once we've acquired the base map, it is digitized and edited to form the base for our own map, and to this are added historical features, including some that have disappeared. The large scale of 1 to 2,500 allows us to show major buildings in detail where this is known. Natural and man-made topographical features that underlie the modern townscape are marked, including watercourses which have since disappeared. In the case of Alnmouth, the changing course of the river had a marked impact on the shape of the settlement and also on its viability as a port. The key or legend explains what each of the symbols and colours means. Themes are common from map to map, but there are always some specific local features to be accommodated. And with the help of the street directory or gazetteer keyed to the map, the reader can find addresses and locate buildings, events and activities from the past. Typically, the reverse of the map, as here, includes a street directory, images of buildings, extracts from historic maps, and thematic or topic boxes, such as this one on Alnwick's Pants, its water supply. If there's just one person interested in Alnwick or Alnmouth in the audience, and he or she doesn't already know about this map, then I hope I've promoted a sale. But that won't be the case for most of you. If your interest is in developing your own historical map, what can you learn from our practice? How do we actually go about researching and plotting the information on a historical map, and what sources do we use? It's really important to say that we don't do this by ourselves. All of our maps are the product of local collaborations and rely on local expertise and enthusiasm. The Trust can offer editorial and cartographic expertise and coordinate the production and distribution of the map, but most of the work is done by a local group. Their knowledge and research contribute the information to be mapped, and they lead the fundraising for their map or atlas, as well as planning the ways in which it might be used, for example, in local schools. The process of making historical maps draws on a wide range of sources for information, but the most obvious one is historic maps and views. The National Library of Scotland, as I said, is the source for the Ordnance Survey maps, but also for a great many other maps, highly to be recommended. The British Library also has a fantastic map collection. Some of it used to be online, but given the difficulties of their recent difficulties, not everything that was once available still is. It is, however, still possible to find things in the catalogue and to order them up to see, but some of the online visibility has gone. I also recommend the Catalogue of British Town Maps, which allows you to find and identify and research individual maps for searching by place or date. And of course, we use views, historic views, etchings, engravings, drawings, all the sorts of things that were produced in the 18th, 19th and early 20th centuries. These are helpful for actual information for the maps, but also for use as illustrations. The British Museum website is an excellent source, but there are many more. And of course, there are many other kinds of sources for reconstructing townscapes. Archaeology, standing buildings, official and unofficial histories of individual buildings or of towns, town records concerning streets, town walls, markets, building regulations, and of course the universal Pevsner. The actual process of creating a map, of turning information into cartography, is directed by the Trust's cartographic editor, Giles Darks, and he made a video for 2023's All About That Place, explaining that process in greater detail with examples. For more information about the Trust, what we've achieved so far, and what we hope to achieve, please do visit our website. There's more information there about what's involved in making a map or atlas and how partnerships work. Several of our earlier publications are available for free download, and our more recent ones can be ordered from the online shop. We post the latest news on the website and social media, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you. Okay, next we have Jonathan Peacock, who is the editor of Victoria County History for Durham. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Grant, and please, just to correct that, I'm the chairman of the Trust. I'm not the editor, because it is relevant to everybody that actually I'm not a historian. I have a passionate belief in history, and I love being allowed to be involved, but I am a scientist by education myself. Anyway, I am also a lifelong member of the Society of Genealogists, going back very nearly 60 years now, I believe. So this is all very familiar territory for me. This afternoon, I want to tell you about the Victoria County history with respect to County Durham. It's a research organisation which is busy producing a formalised and academic history of the county. But the considerations with respect to genealogy has to start with why one is doing that genealogy for oneself. Some people do it to prove that they're the inheritors of a massive fortune. Others do it to find out that they are descended from Adam. So there are many reasons why one does genealogy. But my own particular passion has been to find the context of where my ancestors lived and the circumstances in which they lived their lives, the places and the environment. And that's where the Victoria County history can be much more relevant. It is not the place to find the names of your ancestors, but it gives you the background to the general history of the area. We work through teams of volunteers who build up a history in a very formalized way, and we then publish it. An example, for example, is the history of Darlington, which we published recently, and this is an illustrated volume of the townscape of Darlington, which, if you had the opportunity to see Ruth Slatter's general introduction to the VCH, she referred to these, and indeed this was the very first of the more accessible and specific volumes that we produced nationally. The main volumes that the VCH produces are what we call the Big Reds, and these are a much more general volume for an area. So this is for the town of Sunderland, but it is in a very formulaic way. But if you are descended from people who worked in the shipyards, it has a section on industry, or lived in the area. It's got sections on education, it's got sections on religion. And so these are the ways that one can use the VCH for building up the context of where one lived. We work by having teams of volunteers in a specific area. And at the moment, the next Big Red that we're working towards is the Big Red for Teesdale, which is therefore north of the river. As other people, Carolyn referred to the fact that the ancient boundary lines still are relevant to us. So we work on the north bank of the Tees, so that places like Cotherstone or Startforth, if you know of this area in detail, are in Yorkshire because they're south of the river. They might be in the modern county of Durham, but we do not cover them. They're covered by the Yorkshire volumes. So we work from the Tees to the Tyne in the north. And so we would not cover Newcastle, but we will consider Gateshead as ours when we are writing these formal versions of our history. And we have a volunteer in a town, and in the present work, we have done Gainford. We have nearly finished Middleton in Teesdale. We're working in Staindrop, and we're just about to start Barnard Castle. And we welcome volunteers to get involved. We mentor them. We give them educational courses on the reading of old documents and things like that. And being a member of a volunteer team can give one sometimes access to otherwise not easy to access archives. But you do really need to live in the actual area. So you need to be, as you might say, a resident of Barnard Castle to get involved with the Barnard Castle project that we're just getting started with now. But certainly the whole of the Victoria County history is a most constructive way of following the history of an area where your ancestors might have lived. So I'd be very happy to take questions or to take contacts, and people can get access through the Society of Genealogists paperwork to my email if they want to get more involved. Otherwise, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, our final speaker this afternoon is Dr. Paula Orcutt, is a Senior Research Associate at the University of Portsmouth and contributor to the local history website, A Vision of Britain Through Time. Over to you, Paula.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our website. It's like the previous two presentations, it is about places, it's not about people. We don't cover individual people, individual buildings or streets. It's all about place and area and the locality that people lived in. it's to help you understand what the place was like when your ancestors lived in them. And you can search it by using a place name or a postcode. And the information it will bring you back is old maps, descriptions of places in the past, and statistics. So I'm just going to go through kind of a demonstration of the easiest way into the website. So this is the front page of the website at the moment. And I've chosen Hartlepool as the example that I'm going to go through today. So you type in the place name into the top left-hand corner in the search box, and it will ask if there are multiple places with the place name that you're looking for. It will say which one do you want to choose. In this case, we're going to go for number 1, and it will take you to the place homepage for Hartlepool. If there's only a single place with the name, it will take you directly to this page. This page is designed for 2 purposes. 1, it will give you information immediately about the place that you're interested in. And secondly, it's a stepping stone to other information. So you can see at the top, we've got 2 maps. You've got the left-hand one, which is an excerpt of a historical map. And the right is just an outline image with a marker to show where in the country we're looking at. Beneath that is a historical description, which is taken from Bartholomew's Gazetteer of the British Isles. And you could, so we're going to start with that. And if you click on the show further information, it expands to show you more about what that entry says about Hartlepool. And once you've read that, you might think, oh, what else can I find out that's written in the past? So on the left, we have a menu, and it will take you, if you go to the historical places and writing, it'll show you what else we have. At the top, you've got entries from the Imperial Gazetteer, which was from 1872, references to Hartlepool. And underneath, we've got references from people who journeyed around British Isles and reference places during their journeys. The travel writing covers from the 1190s, when we've got Gerald of Wales travelling around, through to the late 19th century. In this particular case, George Head references Hartlepool the most. So if we click on his entry for the Durham coast, we go directly to where he starts to talk about Hartlepool. Now, this entry is from the 1835 tour of manufacturing districts of England. He wrote 2 travel books in the 1830s, and obviously it's an outsider's view of the place that they were visiting. And it's all personal opinion, so it may be complimentary, it may not. It's entirely, who knows. On the left, you'll see there's a map with blue dots. That indicates the places in this section of the text that he mentions. And if you look in the text, the place names are highlighted in blue. And if you click on those, it takes you back to the place name at the page that you've got to start with for the place. The second set of information we're going to look at is the historical map. So that's there. If you click on the historical map from the place page, it takes you into our collection of historical maps. We do not have really detailed street maps, but we do have a collection of various area maps. We have topographic maps, which are mosaics that cover the whole country. We have boundary maps that are for specific dates, which may or may not cover the whole country, depending on the series that you're looking at. And we have some land use maps from the 1930s. The map window, you can pan and zoom. And if you look at the bottom of this page, you'll see there is a list of map sheets. Now that list will update as you pan and zoom the map. So it will always present you with the ones that are most relevant to the view that you're looking at in the map window. And if you click on the link at the bottom for the 1902 Ordnance Survey map, it takes you to, it'll open a new tab up and it'll take you to that map sheet. And you can pan and zoom that map sheet and look at the detail that it provides. And that's true for all of the maps that we hold. So going back to the place page again, on the left-hand menu, we have related websites. And if you click on that, it will take you to a list of websites that are external to ours, but also cover the whole country and also have information about Hartlepool in this case. So it will, if you click on any one of these links, for example, the Wikipedia one or the Victoria County History one, it will take you to their website and their page about Hartlepool. So it's totally directly to the information that you want to know. So finally, I'm just going to talk a little bit about statistics. We use statistics in two ways. At the bottom of the main part of the place page, you have Hartlepool through time. Now, this is taking the modern area of Hartlepool Unitary Authority. When I say modern, at this point in time, I mean 2011. We are in the process of updating to include the 2021 census, but we're not there yet. It will be in the next 3 or 4 months. So at the moment, modern to me is 2011. So please bear with me. So if you click on that link, it will take you to information about the statistics for this area. And the idea is that you can see a long run of statistics through time using the modern boundary for the area of the Unitary Authority. So to take one example, I'm going to take population here. We give you a list of information that we have available, and the data is listed there. I'm going to pick total population. And the first thing you're presented with is a graph. So from 1801 through to 2011. You can choose to look at the numbers instead in the table view, and then you have the sources available at the end. Now, obviously, the Unitary Authority of Hartlepool did not exist throughout time. And as the previous speakers, Jonathan and Carolyn, have alluded to, geography has changed quite a bit. So you can also get to the original statistics for the original units that existed at the time. If you go back to your place page and look on the left-hand bar, there's a unit of statistics link, and that will take you to a list of all the historical units called Hartlepool. And at the moment, it shows you a tick box, and you can click on any of these ticks, and it will take you to statistics about that particular unit. So the two that are used the most are the two at the top, the registration districts and the municipal local government districts. So if you went to the population information for one of those two, on the left-hand side at the bottom, we've got the registration district, which for Hartlepool was created in 1859. And that was, so that has information from the census from 1861 through to 1911. And then at the top on the right, we have the local government district, which was a municipal borough from 1911 through to 1961. And after that, it became a county borough. And you can get to the population, all the statistics relating to that unit as it existed at the time. You can see a boundary map for that area that existed at the time, and reconstructions of census reports as well. Thank you for listening.
Okay, now at the end of the day, we've got a quick resume of questions that people have put within our chat today. And we're keeping the recording going so that those of you who are watching it at home afterwards have got the benefit of everyone's opinions. So here we go. Kelly, over to you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for a fabulous talk. There are many, many, many questions. I have tried to select the ones that are going to be the most general, that will apply to most of our listeners. And I would like to ask and suggest that those people who put very specific questions relating to their family or items that they are thinking they might like to donate, to get in touch directly with the presenters through their organization. And I apologize if I'm going to have to miss some people who had very burning questions. I think one of the big general questions maybe for all of you, but I know that that Carolyn touched on it, that she might speak to it, and then I don't think she did, was to explain the boundaries of Old County Durham, and which used to include 2 small places in northern Northumberland, and where all of the collections are now held, in which individual archives.
Okay, how long have we got?
Is there a map? Is there a map? I know some maps.
A map would be far too complicated. I think I alluded to it when I talked a little bit in the Tyne Wear section, that broadly, certainly Northumberland and Durham follow the historic boundaries. So theoretically, we can cover everything relating sort of to the Tyne and the Tees. But as to those peculiars in North Northumberland, so sort of Islandshire and places like that, technically we don't collect today, but obviously because of the reach of Durham in years gone by, we do have relevant records. So the example I'm going to give you is the oldest record we have the story dates from 1122, and it is for a transfer of land in Ancroft, which is very clearly up in the far reaches of Northumberland. So it tends to be the older, particularly medieval material, where we do go up and cover those oddities that were separate to what is now more traditionally County Durham. But I think it's fair to say, and Joe in particular might have a view on this as well, that if we don't have it here at Durham, we're very good at signposting to the appropriate place, whether that's Northumberland Archives, Tyne Wear, or or even sort of Teesside, because we understand how these boundaries have changed for that match the inquiry that you're giving us. Because there are lots and lots of, well, it's this if it's this, and it's this if it's this, and it is quite complicated. So potentially yes, but not in any sort of comprehensive way. And then I did mention as well, we have some diocese of Ripon parishes that are now in County Durham. So for example, Rommel Kirk, Bowes, so those that have just sort of slipped into County Durham, we now have those parishes. And I think just to confuse you all completely, there are 3 County Durham parishes that are in the current county, but they're not in the diocese of Durham. There's only 3 I can think of, and so those have been transferred to Northumberland. And for those of you who are interested, they are Edmund Byers, Hunstanworth and Muggleswick, right up in the far northwest of the county. So I could spend the rest of the week trying to explain to you how the boundaries work. I think what I would say is, if you're confused, contact where you think is the most appropriate office, and we will help you to the best of our ability.
Thank you. That's usually my strategy, because archivists are amazing people and very helpful. A general question was about where would I think you did cover this, but information on shipyard workers from both the Tyne and Sunderland areas. Where would they be?
They would be, if they've survived, the most likely place will be Tyne Wear Archives. As I mentioned, their collections for shipbuilding collections are designated as internationally significant. All I would say is they're not always very name rich. Right. You find a lot about the ships they built, not necessarily about the men who built them.
There were a number of books mentioned throughout presentations, I think probably particularly in Elsa's, and there were a couple of questions about, are there any lists of the publications covering Durham and Northumberland? I'm going to guess no.
Well, we're obviously going to get a copy of my slides, which will be sent to everybody, and the SOG catalogue's a good place to start, I would have thought.
Yes, because the SOG collects many, many, many publications. That's right. So are there any asylum records either at the Story or in the Northumberland archives?
Yes. Sorry, I'll leap in for this one. So we're actually recataloguing the St George's county asylum records at the moment. That I think that they have been, the main series have been catalogued for quite a long time, but they've been done to quite old standards, so they're being recatalogued at the moment. They're a really fantastic source, a lot of records of individuals. If you're very lucky, the case books even have photographs of the individuals who were at the asylum. Yes, we're even planning to have an exhibition later in the year of the St George's asylum collection, which will be at County Hall in Morpeth, to kind of celebrate that recataloguing that we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, just to pick up from where Joe has finished. So the main county asylum in Durham is was it with Sedgefield, called Winterton. Again, we've got very similar records to those that Joe's described. Obviously, depending on the date, there will be some access restrictions, but again, it's always worth contacting us first as to what the situation is. And there are also significant records at Tyne Wear for the asylum that is St Nicholas in Gosforth. So there's quite, and I think also, just to confuse everybody, again, this is another example. Gateshead's asylum was at Stannington, which is actually Northumberland. But the records are at Tyne Wear.
Okay, wonderful. This is for you as well, Carolyn. Can your records be searched online away from the story, or do you have to go into the story to use your online records?
At the moment, everything is on site. It's all IP restricted to the story. I've been asked this a number of times since we opened. In the short term, we have no plans to put everything online. Medium term, longer term, I think that you will see that happen. But at the moment, we're just finalising on getting everything set up the way that we want to. But we've got big ambitions to share as widely as we can. I think I saw another is we do have our school records are on Find My Past, which is part of a national programme about 10 years ago.
Okay, yes, there was a question about are any of the collections from the Northeast going to go on any of the major providers, such as Ancestry or the Genealogist or Find My Past.
Yeah, we have no plans to do that at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Another sort of, it was a specific, but I'm going to turn it into a general question about mining disasters, and do the coroner's inquest records can still exist, and if so, where would they be held for any colliery disaster in the area?
Okay, if I start and then Joe could perhaps continue. So we do have coroner's records here at Durham. They're not great for 19th century. So if there was a 19th century disaster, I wouldn't be thinking of coroners as the first port of call. I think they get a little bit more useful in the early 20th century, as perhaps where there's been one or two miners, but for the big disasters, not so much, unfortunately. I think it's mainly because survival wasn't great. You know, a lot of the coroner's records we just haven't survived. So you know, I think the best sources often for colliery disasters are actually newspapers. You know, I think of the Seaham disaster in 1880, where 164 men and boys lost their lives. The most comprehensive information that I've seen is actually local newspapers, and also the Illustrated London News, which has got a superb account with illustrations of what happened. So I think the newspapers more than adequately fill the gap, and also they would report the coroner's inquests, and sometimes verbatim. So it's they're plugging the gap where the coroner's records haven't survived.
Yeah, I would say pretty much exactly the same for Northumberland. We do have coroner's records, not so great for the 19th century, much better into the 20th century. The newspapers, as Carolyn said, they report virtually verbatim, and so often they're better records than the inquest records that survive, if they do survive. So the newspapers are sometimes better than the inquest, the coroner's records. We do have records relating to the Hartley disaster of 1862, including some incredibly poignant items which were actually in the mine at the time. I think they belonged to the overman. If you're interested in mining disasters and the Hartley disaster, do have a look on our online catalogue, and those items are listed on there.
Okay, wonderful, and thank you. There was another more specific question, but I'm going to turn it into a general, just pertaining to wills, and where to find wills. I don't think any of you mentioned it, but not at your sites, right? There. Anyone want
to? I'll let Jo start.
Before 1858, the wills for Northumberland were proved at Durham, and they're held by the university. Is that right, Karen?
That's correct. Yeah. Durham University.
There is a really good site that the university has where you can actually search for those wills. After 1858, we do have probate copies of the wills. We've got the probate volumes for Northumberland at Northumberland Archives, so you can see those. We do have the indexes before 1858, so you can search for them if you come and visit us before then. And obviously we have odd wills here and there in collections, so it's always worth having a little search as well, because they do survive in kind of copy forming in various family collections.
Yeah.
If you pick up Durham wills just on Google, on the internet, it takes you through to the Durham site, which is very well indexed. You just put in the name and you can select and refine the name, and then you get, in fact, a facsimile of the actual site. I was coincidentally using it myself 2 days ago to get the will of Thomas Wright of Byers Green, and it is very easy to use and very complete, and it gives you perfect signs.
We put a link to the Durham University wills site a couple of times in the chat, and it will be caught up in the web links that we're going to distribute after the talk. So Durham University site is the place to start with. If you want to go through the digitized copies of the wills that were made by Family Search by a local affiliate Family Search library like the Society of Genealogists, or one nearer to you in the area where you live, the records which have been indexed and digitized by the University of Durham are also digitized by Family Search through their family history catalogue.
Thank you.
If you turn to Durham wills, I think if you remember in the talk I talked about that our society has extracted the names in Durham wills from 1700 to 1857, and they are available in our research centre, and also as membership of the society, and available in CDs for sale. Now, as I mentioned, it could be somebody who was a servant, or there are more wills with minors in than you think. So I would say that I would be worth getting in touch with the society if you're looking for names in Durham wills from that time. And also it's a long alphabetical list, but at the end it says who the testator is, and also what relation it might be to the testator, but it then will say servant as well, and you would have the references to the will to the right hand side of the paper. So it's worth looking at.
Thank you, Joyce. That's an amazing piece of work done by your society to extract all the names that appear in wills, not just who wrote the will. So thank you very much. Going through, this is for you specifically, Joyce. What are the geographical boundaries of the area that your society covers?
Well, we cover right up to from, I'll put this simply, we put from the Tyne right up to the borders, which includes Berwick as well, and includes Newcastle, and also down into the historical county of Durham. That's how we do it. So that's, I know there's another family history society who do cover south part of Durham. We say that we go right down to the bottom of Durham.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Cleveland Family History Society.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes,
and got lots and lots of publications, most of which are also held by the Society of Genealogists.
So there's multiple places to access this information. Wonderful. So a general question about newspapers. Many are available on Find My Past, but sometimes they're almost unreadable, the digitized version. Where would the original copies or the original microfilms be held for papers from? This is specific to Newcastle, but.
Okay, so if I jump in it for Newcastle, so the main source for regional newspapers is the City Library in the centre of Newcastle. You've got a very, very comprehensive collection of Newcastle Journal, Evening Chronicle, and Newcastle Courant. Really fabulous series. So they would be the main ones to go to, but I think they're either using microfilm still, or actually some of the more recent ones actually accessing the original volumes themselves. So they are the main ones. I don't think they've got particularly good indexes, but they're easier to look at if you've got information. Just on touching, I said that we've digitized our newspaper copies of the 21 titles we've got here. They're currently digitized to what I hope you would agree is very high standard. You can zoom in and you can read them very, very clearly. What we have yet to do, but this will be happening for the remainder of the year, I think we've been told it'll take at least 200 days, is we're going to OCR all of those images as part of the package that we've got. So not quite there yet, but we're hoping with the quality of the images that we've got that the OCR will be more successful than what you perhaps see on some of the subscription sites. Certainly the early runs that we've done, we're getting a better success rate.
If I can jump in there, the British Newspaper Archives, which is online, is a subscription site. It's not very expensive and it is massively useful. It's got over 90 million pages accessible. It is totally searchable by name or search term word. It covers newspapers nationally from the early 1700s. I think the earliest they have is about 1720, up to quite recently. And in a recent research project, for example, on Joseph Merlin, the maker of the Silver Swan at the Bowes Museum, I found a huge amount of information published in the contemporary documents. And they are very readable in all cases. So I would in general recommend that to anybody who's interested in newspaper entries.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. There are one or two pages sometimes that aren't as readable, but that happens no matter where we're looking. It could be the original copy, and usually it's just the one page that I want to look at. That's right? Isn't just Murphy's Law? But you know, I want to say there are many, many, many other questions, but they're quite specific, and I'm sorry to disappoint some people, but I think that those are the general questions that we had that would be of most interest to most people. So I think we'll end the questions there.
Okay, well, it just falls to me to say thank you. Thank you very much indeed to all our speakers today for coming in and presenting us with a fascinating insight to my homeland as well as many other people's here. It's interesting looking down the list of names of attendees here, just how many people I sort of, oh yes, I've come across them in the Northeast research before. So that's wonderful for give your time to come in to talk to us. The production will be available.